So this is part 2 of Black People Don't Tip. And a lot of comments were in my comment section saying, oh, I'm black and I tip and blah, blah, blah. And I'm pretty sure there are black people that tip. But majority of people that were talking that were black in my comment section were black people who did not tip and argued with me tooth and nail about tipping. And that they don't have to tip and they only tip if they go above and beyond, whatever the hell that means. So let's go through the comments and I'm going to give commentary on there. So this says, I tip and I am black and I tip well. But this was a habit I learned from my parents. So maybe the first guy had that part right. Maybe black people who do not tip also did not witness their parents tipping growing up. And that's a good point. Because if you're not exposed to it when you're growing up through your parents, because your parents are the people you learn from, because they're what is that whatever they do beelines to you as far as like, you know, dinner table manners, etiquette, and also habits. And this is one of the habits that black people have, is not tipping. So this one says, when I waited tables, many of my coworkers complained about getting stiffed by black customers. It happened to me a few times, but I received an okay tip the majority of the time. I think most black customers like that I provided good service with a good attitude and they tipped accordingly. Perhaps they came to the restaurant expecting bad service. That is possible, that some people give bad service off the bat because they believe that black people will not tip them, so they don't really care about the table, thus neglecting the table, and then the outcome is a bad tip. That is true. But I will say that overwhelmingly more times than not, we still give good service and get a bad tip. I don't know what black folks are expecting, but it's definitely a thing where it seems like, yeah, there will be a few black people that tip, but those outliers do not outweigh the majority. And yeah, here's the rest of it. I provided good service with a good attitude and they tipped accordingly. Perhaps they came to the restaurant expecting bad service and I served their expectations. One time, I served a 10 top of black customers at a bar rush, and each person at the table came back to tip me, make sure I was taken care of. But that's an outlier. That's not the majority of times. We're talking about majority of times. If this was the majority of times with this individual, great. But me when I was a server, no. And many other servers, no. And another thing is too, I'll say this. This is a little off topic. Black people, we don't realize it, but a lot of people are not going to go online that are white or Asian that do service work and say that black people don't tip, because they don't want to come across as a bigot and they don't want to come across as someone as racist. But our people are telling you that this is an issue that we are perpetuating. So this comment says, the non-tippers sit down with an attitude and start complaining before you even get to their table. You'll know when you see them. That is true. And I'm sorry, black people, but we got to work on that, because that is us. When I was working at Fridays, I noticed black people will sit down and complain about everything. Like, they're down to the food, the appearance of the food. And I'm telling you, the appearance of the food will never look like the food on the commercial. Unless you're at a 5-star restaurant. If you're going to a low-end chain franchise, yeah, that ain't happening. So this comment says, I'm black and I worked as a server. There was definitely times where I served black people and they were demanding and didn't tip. However, I experienced that with some white customers as well. I also had a great experience with black people and they tipped well, so it really depends on the person. That is true. Like I said, that is true. But how majority of the customers that are tipping you, who is it? Because you seem like you're kind of going back and forth with that one. I tip good only when service is above and beyond. And this is what I'm talking about with black folks. What is above and beyond? What is above and beyond? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to go into the stratosphere, come back down like fucking Thanos, and then serve you plates? No. If they had the abilities to do that, they would not be serving tables. I don't know what above and beyond is to black people. I really don't. What the fuck is above and beyond, my people? What? I actually push for livable wages more than tipping because of the history behind tipping in America. Then if that's the case, to stop dining at those restaurants. You're full of shit. I thought waiters got paid the same amount per hour. It wasn't until I became one that I realized that tips matter. And from then on, I began tipping. Educate. Maybe they are not informed. That's true, but I'm telling you, black people know they're supposed to tip. And they always say, oh, it's optional. That's always the argument. If I have a server, my minimal tip percentage is 15%. I'm not going to tip if I'm walking up to a counter and then to slide to the left to wait on my order. Another thing, by stereotyping all black customers because of an occasional, it is not an occasional. If it was an occasional thing, people would not be talking about it. This is something that happens often. The occasional bad tipper is very unprofessional of the server in that business. I mean, it is what it is. You can say it's unprofessional, whatever. It just is what it is. They don't. I delivered to a black woman who works at a wig store, and she gives me the exact change. Eesh. I would be livid. I would hate to deliver to her. And then sometimes people don't realize if you're not tipping your delivery drivers, people are very they're calculated. They'll do something to your food, and you might notice it, you may not notice it, but people will do things to your food. You need to stop being daft. It's that the bigger thing is we should discuss is that despite the general fact that black folks don't tip, it shouldn't encourage servers to give mediocre service. It's one of those things in the industry that we know, and like bad medicine, you just got to take it and do your job the best of your ability. Typically, other generous customers balance it out. But you got that one table that's demanding, they're loud, they're dirty. That shit is stressful as fuck. Because black people will be demanding, loud, something's always wrong. They think that black people act like they're the only people in the restaurant. And it's so unfortunate. And I love my people, but I just gotta call a buck. It is what it is. Like, this is a problem. I think the issue is we're not acknowledging the problem. One thing I wish to see in the future, so it deeds this conversation, is change in the industry where tips are not allowed. Where what would have been the 20% tip is built into the menu. Y'all say that, but that $12 steak is going to be $20. And then you're going to bitch about that, about how it costs too much to go out. People, like, come on. It got to be one or the other. Like, seriously, because y'all not making any sense. If it is a stereotype, is it a stereotype if it is true? 20% is standard, and black folks expect you to jump through hoops, and that's true, and give like $5 to $10 on a $100 check. It's crazy. That's why establishments end up adding gratuity to the checks, and rightfully so. You have your outliers, but in general, this is true. This stands true. I am the outlier because I always tip. I'm an outlier myself. And I know that black people don't tip. Like, we gotta stop playing around. In Atlanta, for example, it got so bad that waiters or waitresses were quitting that they decided to add gratuity to every check in every bill. And then people were bitching about the gratuity that was automatically added because y'all don't tip. If they're automatically, in a black area, Atlanta is a black city. It is so bad with people not tipping the waiters and waitresses that are not making a certain amount per check that they have to add gratuity. That means majority of people in that area are not tipping. We have to be analytical with this. That is what that means. So do with that as you will. I tip based on how my service was. I will leave a huge tip if you go above and beyond. Why do black people keep talking about above and beyond? What the hell do you want them to do? But if you're treating me automatically like I'm not going to give you a good tip, then you're not going to get a good tip. Whoops. Hang on. Then you're not going to get a good tip. All of us aren't going to screw you over. I have left a quarter as a tip just to let you know that. Okay. Well, that's the end of Black People Don't Tip. A lot of black people seem like they're arguing tooth and nail about tipping. And people want you to go above and beyond, whatever the fuck that means. I don't know what they want you to do. And yeah, it's a problem that we're still going to not acknowledge.